3,000 plus arrests, 14 men killed, 0 gunshot wounds. These are not legends. These are federal court records. Bass Reeves doesn't escape to safety. He escapes into chaos. Spring 1861, the banks of the Red River mark a raw boundary. Texas behind, Indian Territory ahead. Reeves, just 23, slips away under a night sky, leaving behind the world that claimed to own him. No plan, no promise of shelter. Only the wild, untamed land and the threat of slave catchers or hostile patrols at every turn. Indian Territory is a patchwork of nations and allegiances. The Creek and Seminole, forced here decades earlier, have their own laws, their own languages. Reeves arrives as an outsider, a fugitive. Survival means adaptation. He learns to track by broken twigs and distant smoke. He picks up Muskogee words, trading labor for food, listening more than he speaks. Tribal oral histories recall a stranger who worked the fields, who watched the river for signs, who studied every habit of man and animal alike. There is no welcome committee. The land is lawless, and the Civil War's violence bleeds across every border. Outlaws, deserters, and bounty hunters move in the shadows. Reeves learns to read the land like a ledger, where the ground softens near a spring, where a trail splits to hide a camp, how to vanish at the hint of trouble. He is hunted and hunter, forced to trust no one, forced to rely on his own wits and whatever alliances he can quietly forge. Every day in this chaos, Reeves is sharpening skills that no school could teach. The land becomes his teacher, danger his curriculum. He emerges not just as a survivor, but as a man who knows every secret path, every dialect, every tactic needed to outthink those who would see him returned in chains. May 12, 1882, two brothers, James and William Bates, are wanted for horse theft near the Spring River. Federal warrants from Judge Isaac Parker's court have a way of traveling fast, but few men can deliver them like Bass Reeves. The job isn't brute force, it's patience and a knack for vanishing in plain sight. Reeves rides alone miles from the nearest deputy, swapping his signature hat for one with fake bullet holes, his boots for battered shoes, and his coat for a beggar's rags. He limps up to the Bates family cabin at dusk, asking for a crust of bread, playing the part of a worn-out tramp. The mother lets him sleep by the hearth. Through the night, he listens to the brothers whisper about their next move, memorizing every word, every footstep. No badge, no gun on display, just the quiet calculation of a man who knows the value of surprise. His greatest tool in the field is disguise. At dawn, as the brothers reach for their boots, Reeves stands. The disguise drops. He draws his revolver and levels his voice. Both men are under arrest, named in a federal warrant. The shock is total. Not a single shot is fired. The docket, US versus Bates, number 188203, will show both prisoners delivered alive to Fort Smith without a scratch on the lawman or his quarry. Judge Parker's signature on the warrant is more than a formality. In this territory, it means the law has teeth. Yet what sets Reeves apart is not just the number of arrests, but how many end without blood. In a world that expects violence, his greatest weapon is disguise, patience, and the element of surprise. The pattern is set: outthink, outwait, and outmaneuver, always with the law in hand and rarely with the gun. Bass Reeves carried more than a badge. He carried the law itself, often in his head. He could not read or write, but his mind held the names, crimes, and descriptions of dozens of wanted men at any given time. When a new warrant arrived from Judge Parker's court, Reeves would listen as a clerk or fellow deputy read it aloud, then commit every detail to memory. Marshal correspondence from the period notes, Deputy Reeves retains the particulars of all writs, despite his lack of schooling. In the field, this was no hindrance. Reeves would approach a suspect, recite the charges with precision, and have the man read the warrant aloud, using the moment's distraction to draw his revolver and take control. This method appears in court testimony from 1887, where an accused thief recalled, He made me read my own warrant while his hand never left his gun. The scale of Reeves's work dwarfed that of his peers. Where most deputies returned with 2 or 3 prisoners, Reeves's ledgers show him delivering groups of 8, 10, sometimes a dozen at once. A surviving entry from the Fort Smith delivery ledger, dated September 1889, records Reeves arriving with 12 prisoners in tow, 8 of them wanted for violent crimes. The clerk's note reads, "No other deputy has matched this number in a single return." Federal records credit Reeves with more than 3,000 arrests over his career, a figure unmatched in the annals of the US Marshals Service. Yet the numbers only tell part of the story. Reeves's methodical approach, memorizing warrants, using his illiteracy as a tactical advantage, and moving with relentless efficiency, made him a force of nature in Indian Territory. His ability to bring in so many, so often and so alive, set a standard that no lawman of his era could rival. A marshal's badge does not shield a man from heartbreak. In March 1902, a federal warrant, docket W-1902-03, bears the name James Reeves. The charge is murder. The man who requests the warrant is his own father. Bass Reeves, now graying and weathered, rides out not as a father desperate to protect his son, but as a lawman bound to the oath he swore. The hunt lasts 2 weeks across tangled woods and river crossings. James moves with the desperation of a man who knows his pursuer's mind better than any outlaw alive. But Bass is relentless. He follows the smallest clues: a broken branch, a cold campfire, a boot print half swallowed by mud. No posse, no shortcuts. The lawman who brought in hundreds with patience and cunning now applies those same tools to the most agonizing task of his life. When Bass finally closes in, there is no drama, no gunfire, just the silent weight of duty. He places his son in irons and delivers him to the court without favor or plea. The record stands. Bass Reeves, the most effective lawman in American frontier history, arrested his own blood when the law demanded it. In that act, the line between legend and man is drawn with absolute clarity. 5 details form the backbone of the Lone Ranger legend, and each one, in some form, traces back to Bass Reeves. The first is the silver dollar. Reeves was known to leave a silver coin as a calling card, a habit recorded in 1889 court testimony from a captured outlaw who called it the Marshal's mark. The second is the companion. Reeves often rode with native deputies, most notably Ben C. Glover, a Cherokee tracker cited in 1887, Marshal Returns. The third is disguise. Reeves's use of costumes such as tramp, preacher, or even a woman's shawl appears in at least 4 documented arrest reports. The fourth is the code. Reeves refused to shoot unarmed men and never drank on duty, a moral line noted in Judge Parker's correspondence from 1890. The fifth is the Detroit radio link. In 1933, WXYZ's Lone Ranger radio show writers referenced a real black marshal of the West, but the studio's production memos stopped short of naming Reeves directly. The evidence chain is compelling, but incomplete. The myth grows in the gaps between documentation and legend, leaving viewers to decide where history ends and folklore begins. When the Federal Marshal Service withdrew from Indian Territory in 1907, Bass Reeves was 70 years old. His badge, worn thin by decades of use, was no longer backed by the authority of Washington. But retirement was a word he never accepted. Muskogee's city police hired him as a patrolman, no ceremony, just a night watchman's post and a new beat to walk. Personnel files from 1907 list Reeves among the city's first black officers, his name penciled in next to men half his age. He patrolled the streets on horseback, breaking up fights, settling disputes, and bringing in drunks, always with the same quiet authority that had cowed killers and thieves. Reeves wore the uniform until illness forced him to stop. On January 12, 1910, he died in Muskogee, still in service, his final years spent enforcing the law in a new state. There were no monuments, no grand tributes, just the record of a man who, from bondage to badge, served until the end. In a nation still reckoning with who upholds the law and who the law protects, Bass Reeves stands as an undeniable record, not myth. His legacy forces us to ask, when justice is inconvenient, who has the courage to carry it out? The question still echoes. Share your thoughts below.